Hello again, everypony. Welcome back to another review by Historical Equestria, a monthly seminar conducted by the Canterlot Archives. I'm SkyShadow, a royal archivist, and the host of these seminars. If this is your first time attending Historical Equestria, and you'd like to learn more about the subjects we're covering, please visit the front desk of the Archives Historical section. Another royal archivist there will be able to help direct you to the correct information. Today, we'll be returning to our previous topic of the zebra tribes and their recorded oral histories. Up to this point, we've learned about their beginnings in the Running Lands, followed them through the Death Road, and learned from the mysterious Sphinx. However, after witnessing the distant cataclysm of Equestria on what was called the Radiant Night, the Sphinx suddenly cast the zebras from their land without warning, leaving them to venture into the Ashen Plains. Their numbers dwindling, they encountered an unusual creature whose mad wisdom introduced them to the use of lodestones. With these, they were able to escape the shifting volcanic lands. At last, they collapsed at the foot of a great forest, spanning as far as the eye could see, a great jungle known as the Forest of Webs. Seeing the lush forest before them after so much hopeless wandering, the zebras cheered and wept in joy. Here, there was plentiful bounty, fruits and leaves and grasses to eat, an endless supply of fresh water, beautiful and sweet-smelling flowers. There were also a great many oddities, insects of unusual sizes and shapes, some never before seen. Even the local wildlife was somewhat strange, although most were very primitive and kept to themselves. Of course, the zebras were understandably hesitant about venturing too far into these jungles, given their most recent experiences. It seemed that they had finally found a place of peace. Slowly, they began to venture deeper and deeper into the jungle's heart, determined to understand it so they might make it their home. Still, there was something undeniably mysterious about this dark forest, with its great trees and unusual flora. But then, one of the zebras disappeared. A group of them went into the jungle to gather food, and one strayed too far behind. She noticed they were being followed by a set of glowing eyes, and she lagged behind to confront them, but there was no sound, no trace of where she'd gone. And before long, the zebras again began to fear that they'd come upon a paradise, only to find misfortune. The zebra mare's name was Zebrica, and she awoke to find herself inside a webbed dome presided over by a monstrous spider. She was of course terrified, but was unable to flee as the spider blocked the entrance. Zebrica braced herself, preparing for the end. But it did not come. Instead, the great spider merely stared at her and offered her two bowls, one of water and the other filled with a curious fluid. It then gingerly kept its distance, allowing her to safely observe her surroundings. To her surprise, the dome was luxuriously furnished rather like a hut, with carpets and pillows woven from spider silk. When she had calmed, Zebrica considered her predicament. She hesitantly drank the water that was given to her, but the other fluid smelled strange, and she did not drink it. For several days, this continued. The giant spider would bring Zebrica water to sustain her, though she never touched the second bowl. And each time, she was calmer in its presence. Despite its terrifying appearance, it clearly didn't wish to hurt her. However, she was growing faint from hunger, as water could only sustain her for so long. Seeing her getting weaker, the spider tried making gestures for her to drink the second bowl, indicating it would make her stronger. Reluctantly, she tried it, only to vomit up its contents. The spider was trying to feed her the same thing it needed for sustenance, but those fluids were clearly not compatible with the zebra's diet. Tired and hungry, Zebrica drew images of fruit with her hoof in the dirt, trying to convey what she needed. The spider understood and quickly returned with arms full of fruit, which she greedily ate. The two had found a means of communicating, and they began to draw pictures for each other to explain themselves. Zakina told the story of her people, while the spider shared its own truth. It was one of the many that resided in the jungle. They lived by setting traps with their webs and catching those unfortunate creatures that wandered into them. However, the spiders were an intelligent species, old and very wise. The jungles were their home, and they had spent many long centuries uncovering its secrets and bounties. It was the zebras who would disturb the spiders' forest. But rather than attack or drive them away, the spiders were studying them in hopes of finding a means of speaking to them. The zebras were the first truly intelligent species the spiders had encountered in a very long time, and they were eager to talk. But the physical limitation of their forms made that rather difficult. But what they lacked in a physical capacity, they made up for in wisdom and magic. The spiders had captured a few zebras in order to cast a very particular spell on them that would allow the two species to talk freely despite their linguistic barriers. Zakina was the very first to have this spell cast upon her, and she at last learned the name of her host, Jor, and his people, the Anansi. Of all the zebras that had been taken, not one was harmed. And while there was some initial resentment, it was clear the Anansi had no other means of peacefully convincing their new neighbors to talk with them, given their monstrous-looking appearances and lack of proper vocal cords. But after the spells were cast, all those zebras were released back to their tribe, where they slowly convinced them to meet with the great spiders. The ancient Anansi were grateful to have new companions with which to talk and to share their vast knowledge, and the zebras, having suffered through so much loss and tragedy, were equally grateful for the Anansi's genuine kindness. It was quite possibly the most unusual of friendships, but the benefit to both was truly undeniable, to the zebras in particular. For the Anansi had resided in the jungle for untold centuries and knew the many secrets it held. It was the Anansi who shared with them their knowledge of herbs and medicines and the magic to be found in nature itself. They had brushed upon magic briefly with the Sphinx, but what the Anansi taught them was far older and could be used by anyone with the mind to study it. There were no limitations, no requirements for physical foci. What they learned could be used for great healing, and conversely, also be used to cause great harm. For the magic of the Anansi was the magic of the earth, and there is nothing older or stronger. The zebras remained with the Anansi for many, many generations, forging a most unusual kinship that supposedly endures even to this day, so the storytellers say. Their many years of wandering had taught them humility and empathy. It tempered them, leeching away the poisonous arrogance that had been their downfall. The friendship forged between these two tribes was entirely unique, and through it, the zebras formed the last few cultural norms that are most commonly associated with them. Their herbalistic remedies and innate earthly knowledge of the deeper magics are said to only be a fraction of what the Anansi were capable of. But from them, and from the Sphinx, and their vagrant youth on the savannah, all of these experiences brought about a culmination of their own identity that has remained with them even to this day. It was several centuries after meeting with the Anansi that the zebras left them to return to the savannah. It was not entirely by choice, but according to the zebra storytellers, the Anansi possessed prophetic powers and could see the weavings of the future in the designs of their webs. Through them, they guided others into selecting the best path, and in the case of their zebra friends, they had seen their need back in the land of their origin. The zebras were of course reluctant to leave, but they had absorbed much of the Anansi's wisdom, and they trusted the spider's visions. Of course, the Anansi weren't about to let their friends go off into the same suffering they had experienced, and they made certain to equip and supply them to the very best of their abilities. This included both natural and mystic utensils, including replenishing water jars, cloaks of spider silk, and the like. Actually, the replenishing jars of legend do in fact exist as magic relics kept by the Zebra Historical Preservation, which has a number of scattered locations throughout multiple countries. The Equestrian division is based in Canterlot, where they have one of the jars and cloaks and other zebra relics on display, with the permission of the Maliki, These centers help provide income for zebra relief and assistance, aiding in the restoration of their homeland. Venturing once again onto Death Road, the zebras made the long trek back to the running lands, in far better shape than they had been upon first leaving it. This migration created the last of the great paths bridging the desert, and along the way they marked their roads with runes that could be magically detected even beneath the ever-shifting sands. And while they were leaving their friends behind, the zebras had no wish to part with them forever, and fully intended to return to the jungles. But their expectations were dashed when they saw what had become of the once beautiful lands of Mbio Asili. Our seminar concludes here for today. Next month, we'll learn what happened to the zebra tribes when they finally returned home to the running lands, and what became of the Mbio Asili. I hope everyone enjoyed today's lecture. If you've missed any of our previous seminars about the zebra tribe's history, you can find information about their oral stories in the historical section. Likewise, you can also find the condensed history of Equestria. I hope we'll see you all again next time. Thank you for coming.